What's up, everybody? Noble Comics here. More Erik Larson news. If you are familiar with comic book Twitter at all, Erik Larson was the big image guys, creator of Savage Dragon, and he's got some of like the worst takes of all time. Super huge lib, and he's talking about something that he touched on a little bit earlier in another tweet that I could not find, but about basically white characters in comics and switching out for diversity characters. So he's got this tweet here. The original sin at Marvel and DC was making every character straight and white. Now that there's a huge push for representation, they've been caught with their pants down, but how can they fix the problem? And he goes on here to say, with the movies it's easy. Just cast your film with a diverse group, ignore the comics and the fans on Twitter because nobody cares. In the comics, it's more difficult because you can't just swap the races of existing characters. The ideal solution would be to create a whole mess of new characters, which are diverse, and then use those characters in comics and movies. But creators don't want to give Marvel and DC their great ideas, so that's not going to work. Instead, they'll do things like have characters inherit the role from a white character, which pisses off fans of the original character and always seems like a temporary change. Inevitably, the original will return, and that will leave the replacement out in the cold. And says if they're savvy, they can transition the replacement character into a new role, but that's largely messy and leaves readers on all sides pissed off. Now, as a whole, what he's saying here makes pretty coherent sense. There's a few things I want to talk about specifically, but first, like I said, he had an earlier tweet about this same issue where he said that he did not like the diversity replacements. He said, I'm a fan of Iron Man. If you put somebody else in the Iron Man suit, it's not Tony Stark, that's fine, but don't expect me to keep buying it. That's not the character that I like. Which is, like hashtag accidentally Comicsgate. It's like, congratulations, you figured it out after all this time. But what he's saying here, I think it's important to talk about because it is a big issue and Marvel and DC don't really know what to do, or it seems like they don't know what to do with these troublesome characters. Now, but addressing kind of his standpoint that this is the original sin of Marvel and DC, I think is stupid. It wasn't an original sin of Marvel and DC. They didn't do anything wrong. Oh, it's a lot of straight white males in comics. Yeah, well, they were made by a lot of straight white males. And every other diverse character that's in Marvel and DC was also made by a straight white male. But they just added some diversity characters. They made characters that they like. There's nothing wrong with that. And they got popular. Good for them. And then they're saying, how do you fix the problem? Like I just said, I don't think there's a problem, but if you have this viewpoint, there's not enough representation. How do you fix that? And it says, I'll agree with that there. For the movies, it is pretty easy. In the movies, just recast somebody else. People will get upset, but for the most part, it's the movie studios, they don't care. They'll do whatever they want because they know the movie's going to make money. And right here, this says the ideal solution is actually the right solution. Create new characters which are diverse and use those in comics. And he has this here, but creators don't want to give Marvel and DC their great ideas, so that's not going to work. I don't know what he's referring to here. There's a huge push in indie comics right now, just like the whole genre as a whole. More people are going to indie comics. And why would you want to take your characters to Marvel and DC? I think that's stupid. Do it on your own. But if you want to do it with Marvel and DC, there are plenty of people right now who would take that. Look at like Kamala Khan, who was created in 2015 as like a Muslim superhero, and she's already getting a TV show. Same thing with like America Chavez. It's already going to be on the big screen. Like, no. They'll take diverse characters. That's actually the right move. But this here, if you do just give the role away to another character, it pisses off the fans. And I'm glad that he said that and not like pisses off the alt-right, whatever. No, it does piss off the fans. And he is correct that it is always pretty temporary. Now, his suggestion here at the very bottom, I don't think is bad. I think from like a business standpoint, comic book standpoint, the way they should do it is probably like this. You introduce a new Iron Man. it's the black lesbian female transgender Iron Man. And then like a month later you bring back Tony Stark and then you give her her own series. So a mainstream book like Iron Man, you introduce this little known character, and then you give that character their own identity, call them, Iron Trans or whatever. Then they get their own book. So they've had some exposure, they get their own book, hopefully they take off. I don't really have a problem with that necessarily. I think you could try it. Uh, so as a whole, Erik Larson doesn't have bad ideas, but his mindset about it, I think, is incorrect. How it's some sort of sin, it's a bad thing that needs to be corrected. If you want more diverse characters, I say make more diverse characters. That's fine, but the thought that you have to fix this problem, I don't agree with that. But as a whole, this is one of the more coherent things he says, and he's sounding a lot like a Comicsgate person, which is funny, because he would revile at that. But just something he said that I thought was interesting. I thought he made some good points, and I think that if he keeps going down this track, he might just figure out what's actually going on. But let me know what you guys think. See you guys in the next video.